Hello, everyone, and welcome to Higher Education Reimagined. My name is Jim Chase. I lead business applications for higher education at Microsoft. I'm here along with my good friend, Dustin. Dustin?
Thanks, Jim. Hi, everybody. I'm Dustin Ryan. I'm the Director of Data and AI in Higher Education for Microsoft.
And then today, you're here for the Harness Your Data to Reimagine the Student Experience. And who doesn't want to do that? We'll be your host for the day, and I'm going to take you to our first slide, the rise of intelligent data. And this is an important one when we look at the history of education, the history of what we've done. The system of record, that student information system, the thing that we've tried to warp into so many different things out there, but it is ultimately still just a system of record. And we've tried to transform it into the system of engagement, but it's really not built for that. It will always be the system of record. It will never be the system of engagement. So we've started using social and we started using CRMs to get towards that system of engagement. And now we're really starting to get deep into predictive, influence. I know Susie and Frank aren't going to graduate. I'm predicting that behavior. Man, I hope I can get someone to them to act quick enough to keep them in school, to make sure they persist with my brand. But guess what? That's only as good as the human capital that you have out there. And there's not enough out there. So really where we need to get to is prescriptive. We want to maximize our human capital resources that are out there. And I want to know, not only is Susie and Frank, they're not going to persist. I want to know what's the best way to interact with them. And then when should I be using my human capital to interact with them? And then when can I use a bot? Or can I reach out with a text to ask if they're okay? We want to increase that ability to influence our constituents. And that really comes from getting from the predictive behavior and getting towards prescriptive behavior and nudge theory.
Jim, you're totally right. And prescriptive analytics really is that holy grail of analytics. And what it all boils down to is an intelligent use of data. Intelligent data represents an enormous potential that many industries have already capitalized on. When you think of sectors like retail, entertainment, those sectors are putting pressure on higher education to make the most of their use of data as well. Your students live in a world of Amazon shopping, Netflix video streaming, and app stores telling them which products to buy, which movies to watch, and which apps to download. And students really come to expect that type of innovative engagement. And it's all about bringing multiple sources together in one place. It's the same way that streaming services like Netflix can collect content from numerous production companies like Warner Brothers or Sony. It's a unified platform, and that unified platform needs aggregate information from multiple sources in one central hub. For retail, this involves categories like market research, from product catalogs and transactional data. But for higher education, it all comes back to that student experience, from admissions to housing information to financial aid to alumni engagement.
So there are three words that should be on everyone's lips right now: learner-centered engagement. And the reason is because there's another three words that are super important, which is cost of value. The cost of value ratio of higher education is about to be put under a microscope. The expectation for that value is going to be more learner-centered engagement. If you're a tier 1 institution, maybe you can survive without being as centered here. But if you're a tier 2 or tier 3, this is what's really going to differentiate you. It's what's going to differentiate your brand, because the expectation of your students is that there is an engagement that is personalized to them, that you use their data and you use it in a way that creates the best engagement for them at your institution. It is the thing that will get them to continue to persist with your brand year over year.
And Jim, making the most of a university's data means improving outcomes all the way from admissions to alumni engagement, as well as optimizing operational efficiency across the institution. And turning a data platform into a nudge engine helps save time by making decisions easier and automating processes. And the end result is more time for universities to spend on things they care about, like driving student success, for one. Whether you want to meet enrollment and retention goals, or modernize communication and services, or revamp alumni engagement, data should be that foundational layer for all of those efforts.
So let's talk about one of my favorite terms, accidental architecture. It is that thing that has been created at almost all of the campuses throughout the world, really, because the issue is we're making the best business application decisions that we can, but we're making them individually in silos. And now, to create the engagements, to create the interactions that we want with our students, with our faculty, they're asking for a more personalized experience. So we're spending tons of money. And we're spending it on these bloated middleware architectures and APIs, and we're trying to tie together the LMS with the SIS, with the CRM that aren't natively meant to talk to each other. And we're spending a lot of money there, which is stopping us from spending money where it's really needed. We're trying to tie that accidental architecture together. One of the things that I really hope you get from today is that we're bringing something new to the market here. We're bringing a unified data platform. We're bringing a unified cloud that only we can bring to the market. And it's a game changer when it comes to changing out of accidental architecture and becoming more operationally efficient and agile as we move forward. So let's talk about breaking down the walls of accidental architecture. To do that, you need a unified cloud. This is obviously Satya Nadella, our CEO, and he broke down the walls internally within Microsoft, between our Microsoft 365 and our Dynamics team and our Azure team. And because of that, we created this common data model and common data service, which is an underlying architecture to everything we do. But we're the only ones that can do that because we're top and to the right of every quadrant, whether it's data platform or security or productivity or business applications, devices, collaboration, we're top and to the right of all of them. So when we say we can do AI everywhere, when we say that we can create a unified architecture, we're the only one that can do it because we don't have to partner to do it. We have all the pieces internally to Microsoft.
And Jim, you were just talking about accidental architectures. And the reality is that all of the universities that I'm working with, their existing data landscapes are very complex. And that's a very daunting reality for most universities. There's an exponential expansion of devices, data sources, data types, and sheer volume that comes from disparate internal and external data sources. Everybody's got data all over the place. You've got data in the cloud, you've got data in multiple clouds, you've got data on-prem in your data center, you've got files, you've got database systems, you've got SaaS applications. And so the silos are increasing, they're not decreasing, and it can be expensive and difficult to contend with. In addition, you've got compliance, security, and privacy that also have to be considered. So unfortunately, though, there is a tangible negative impact if you do nothing. If you do nothing, you can't realize the potential for differentiated teaching and learning experiences. If you do nothing, educators and staff are forced to make decisions with inaccurate or incomplete information. And if you do nothing, innovation is slowed. And there are a lot of data and AI providers playing in this space, and each can address different parts of the problem. But Microsoft is the only solution provider that can meet the challenges on all fronts.
So let's talk about the challenge of data silos. And when I think of the challenge of data silos, I think of operational efficiency, I think of agility, I think of cost. But all those things lead to not delivering the experiences that we need to deliver for our students, for our faculty, for all of our stakeholders. You may have multiple applications within each of these buckets. And for each of those, you're trying to pull them together. And every time you have to pull them together, I put a big dollar sign up there because that is cost for you. So we are better at pulling these things together than anyone else. We can do this in an agile way. We can do it in a cost-efficient way. And we could give you a path to where you can slowly start moving towards a unified architecture and choose the places where you are going to get the most value to move forward with.
At Microsoft, driving organizational outcomes is part of our core tenet. And you see it right there at the top of our slide. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we want our customers to be empowered by technology, not encumbered by it. And there's a number of really cool examples where we've made this real for customers, helping them to make a positive impact by reimagining education experiences, fostering student success, and unlocking research innovation. One of my favorite examples is Penn State. Penn State can now see all of its campuses and students as a whole, which has enabled them to improve course completion and retention rates. And then you've got UCLA Health. UCLA Health is accelerating research insights. What used to take them weeks or months can now be done in hours or days. So our approach to enabling a data strategy is anchored in three things. The first is making it integrated, building on existing investments and leveraging the end user experiences that you already know and you already have in place. Secondly, it's about providing you the flexibility that you need to take advantage of on-prem solutions, as well as state-of-the-art cloud services and edge computing. And lastly, it's built on trust, a trusted platform with the security, privacy, and compliance you need built in and not bolted on. Now, it can seem like there is a chasm between your goals and your data, and Microsoft uniquely breaks down these barriers to streamline the ecosystem. We're unique in our ability to offer a complete solution that is engineered to work together from the ground up and that builds on security, compliance, and productivity, increasing time to value significantly. We give you the ability not just to deploy, but to manage and govern both a cloud and on-premise data estate through a single pane of glass. We enable you to stay ahead of regulatory requirements with 150 plus out-of-the-box compliance assessments. And productivity is built in with integration to our data visualization and Power Platform suites. Building and sharing things like bots, workflows, and dashboards is accelerated. Establishing the common data model opens a range of possibilities for your institution, including integration with other solutions and tools you may already be using. With data as the foundation, you can create CRM and ERP solutions through Dynamics 365, saving time on processes like budget and support cases and new student leads. Integrating these solutions with Office 365 gives you a full set of productivity tools and a place to surface apps to students and faculty, including the central collaboration hub of Teams, which can integrate with Power Apps. Finally, Microsoft has an extensive trusted partner ecosystem that can build on other integrated solutions tailored to your needs, but more on that later.
So we talked about that unified cloud stack earlier, that thing that Satya broke down the walls to create. It's super important. It's got identity, security management built into it. It's got the top and to the right, low code, no code Power Platform built into it. Dynamics 365, LinkedIn, Microsoft 365. And on top of all of that, we build a higher education accelerator to bring value even quicker to the higher ed market. And if that wasn't enough, we have the strongest partner ecosystem in the world that is building on top of that unified cloud, that is building on top of that higher education accelerator. And later, you're going to get to meet two of the most influential in education. So where do you start, though? Yes, we're talking about AI. Yes, we're talking about agility and time to market and all these things that are really important to us, whether it is the recruitment space, whether it is advancement, future-ready skilling, academic research. The good news is that we have perspective around how that unified cloud impacts every piece of the puzzle here. So when you see student retention and you're worried about the future persistence rates, we have perspective there. When you're worried how to go from a tier 2 to a tier 1 research institution, we have a perspective there. So reach out to Microsoft and bring us your problems within this stack, and we will help you solve them.
Managing relationships with students goes to the heart of what it means to offer an optimal educational experience. And we know that today's digitally native students expect more. Student success with Microsoft and our world-class partner ecosystem gives institutions a flexible platform to manage engagement from recruitment through graduation and beyond. And most importantly, it empowers your college or university to focus on what matters, the success of students like Kylie. Microsoft's student success begins as soon as a student applies to your institution, giving you the ability to optimize the recruitment and enrollment process, leaving you more effective communication, and with more completed applications and improved conversion rates.
Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you. Me too. Stop it.
Once accepted, Student Success can step in to fill the role of counselor and supporter, since most students are stepping away from full-time parental guidance. This technology gives your students information they need, when they need it, with a comprehensive one-stop portal where all students, including Kylie, can get their questions answered quickly to make the university experience smooth and transparent for your students.
Okay, now we'll move to marketing analytics. Ultimately, this will help you gauge optimal performance strategy and overall ROI.
Microsoft Student Success helps you improve student outcomes with powerful advanced analytics to keep a constant read on your students' performances. If a student is falling behind, a 360-degree profile gives you insights into the root of the problem, so it can be addressed early. The software flags students whose needs aren't being met, so that institutions can reach out personally for remediation.
We've noticed that you're falling a bit behind in some of your prerequisites. Let's set you up with a tutor.
Okay. You can do it here?
Yeah, we'll start here.
Okay.
And when a student is back on track, you will know it in real time. Auditing even your most successful performers, you can help ensure all of your students are on track for timely graduation and even life beyond school.
So tell me why you were interested in working for this firm.
I love how this firm supports young people, especially young creative people.
By providing better engagement and support throughout the student's journey, institutions will strengthen forever bonds with students, which is especially important because the strongest advocates of your institution should be your alumni. With a comprehensive platform, Microsoft Student Success provides a powerful and important tool to help drive success throughout the student's journey. And in the end, student success is all that matters.
So as mentioned before, whether it is part of the individual solutions in those pies we just looked at, or sitting on top of the higher education accelerator as we talked about earlier, there are multiple partners that bring a ton of value. Our partners really make Microsoft who we are. And we're about to have a conversation with two of our premier partners, Discourse Analytics and Anthology, and how they're going to use the unified cloud to bring unprecedented impact to institutions throughout education. So I'd like to introduce you all now to Dr. Jennifer Beyer with Anthology.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. Really excited to be here. I am the Vice President of Product Management for our engagement solutions here at Anthology.
So one of the things that we were talking about today is how building on top of the Microsoft Unified Cloud really accelerates your time to market and how quickly you could bring value to your customers. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Anthology made the decision to partner with an organization like Microsoft so that our team could really focus on building the solution that solves the unique needs that our college and university partners have. Leveraging the Microsoft Unified Cloud helps us to accelerate our time to market because we really are building on the shoulders of giants. We're able to take that technology that you and Dustin have been talking about and think about how do we use it to help enroll students faster, identify students who are at risk, identify donors with a greater propensity to give, and then support all of those workflows and processes around those key challenges.
So can you talk a little bit about the traditional SIS market and the CRM market and what you're seeing in the marketplace right now from an agility standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the traditional student information system, that has really been looked at as the system of record on campus. But we are actually challenging institutions to think about that student information system as your system of record for the learner, right? When that student is enrolled. And that system has to be able to manage huge amounts of transactions, course registrations, grades generation, things like that, and really should be optimized to process those transactions quickly and efficiently. That is different then what solutions need when we need to talk about things like engagement? Engagement tools need to be able to respond faster, be more agile, and change to what we're seeing in the market and in the world.
So if there was one thing that you wanted people to remember about Anthology, about what makes you really different than everyone else in the market, what would that be?
Yeah, I think for us, it is how do we help to create that connected campus? So knocking down data silos, creating that data network, while still delivering purpose-built and purpose-focused user experiences, whether that is the staff member in the registrar's office who is responsible for those grades and course registration, whether it's somebody in the marketing team who's wanting to develop awesome engagement tools, or even that club advisor who's wanting to make it easy for students to register for a pizza party.
Yeah, I'm ready for a pizza party. Thank you very much for your time today. Anthology has been an incredible partner of Microsoft, and we really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jim. It's been great.
I'm really excited to be joined here by Lou Aronson, CEO and founder of Discourse Analytics. Thanks for joining us, Lou.
Thanks, Dustin. Great to see you today. Thanks for having us out.
Jim and I just spent a few minutes discussing the real value and potential of a unified platform. And I'd love for you to tell us, how is Discourse Analytics leveraging this powerful and unified Microsoft platform?
Well, Dustin, as you know, but for the others who haven't yet experienced Discourse Analytics in today's session, we're a company that focuses on taking prescriptive analytics and using that to nudge students. And one of the big challenges that exists in higher ed today is data resides in a lot of different places. And so by having a unified platform, by having a higher education data model, by having a common data framework through the Microsoft channel, through Azure, you're able to accelerate the deployment, accelerate the student understanding, and begin to recognize disparate signals more effectively, more rapidly, more efficiently in order to develop an enhanced understanding of the student at every stage of her journey. So when you think about the importance of being able to communicate with your prospects, with your students on a one-to-one basis at scale at every stage of their journey, from recruitment all the way through success, the ability to operationalize that data by looking at the common data model accelerates and brings a newfound efficiency that one would hope to find from a Netflix experience and the like for your students, and really enables you to deliver it.
That's really interesting, Lou. And you touched on something. You mentioned prescriptive analytics. And prescriptive student engagement is one of those things that I think is at the top of mind for a lot of universities out there. And for me, when I think of that, what it really boils down to is taking data and being able to derive actionable insights from that. And so maybe you can spend a couple of minutes explaining what is Discourse Analytics doing to help universities take their data and transform it from that raw data, from reactive reporting to those actionable insights.
What we do at Discourse Analytics is we're able to take all of these different data elements that are captured behaviors that exist now in a unified data environment and translate those captured behaviors into signals, evidence, if you will, of a student's mindset. And we're going to use that to nudge a student, which is very simply, a lot of people talk about nudging. We view nudging quite simply as a call to action. I need you to fill out your financial aid forms. I need you to complete your FAFSA verification. I need you to deposit. I need you to go see an instructor to help because you got a bad grade in a class. Well, a call to action is going to be different to somebody who has a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. If you were a teacher advising a resilient student or a low resilience student, you talk to that student differently. So what we're able to do now by leveraging the Azure cloud, by leveraging the data model, is to look back and say, we want you to do something tied to a channel, because channel becomes more important than ever. That's why the unified cloud is also super important, because you can send a push notification, an email, a call, etc. to a mindset. Is this student overwhelmed? Is she overcommitted? Is she a procrastinator? Is she a motivated achiever? And when you think about the integration of problem to mindset, that's where one-to-one really begins to empower students through their.
Wow. Thanks, Lou. Thanks for your time. That's really exciting to hear. Take care.
Appreciate it, Dustin. Thank you. And thanks for having us out here.
Wow, that was a great session. I always love hearing from our partners. Thank you, Jim and Dustin. We do have a couple of questions from the audience that I want to go to now. The first one, I'll give this one to you, Jim. So the question is, how do we think about Microsoft versus some of the other players out there in the marketplace?
Well, I think not to overuse the word unified, but there are a lot of people that are top and to the right of individual things. I might be top and to the right and just focus on admissions or just focused on advancement, or maybe I'm just focused on security or just hardware. But we're the only one that really can bring all of that together. So our true differentiator in market is, yes, we're really good in, first or second in almost every one of those buckets. But when you bring the entirety of the solution together, when you bring all of those buckets together that are meant to work with each other, no one can bring the time to value and agility that we can to market. And when in the future, raise your hand if they're raising your budgets in IT next year. Most people aren't going to raise their hand, right? You're going to have to do more with less, which means you're going to have to be agile. You're going to have to be operationally more efficient, and you're going to have to get rid of some of that middleware and some of that accidental architecture that I talked about.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And here's another question for you. So there's so much to focus on, really having a hard time on how do I prioritize? How do I start tackling this accidental architecture?
So one of the first things that I like to talk about when I'm meeting with a customer really are, what are the KPIs that we're trying to move? And really, that's where we're going to have to start in the future, to figure out where's the most value that we can get for our money in the least amount of time possible. So is the indicator that we're looking at, we're worried that we're not going to convert as many applicants as we did in the past? Is the indicator that we're going to look at is that we're not persisting as many people from the first year to the second year? So it's funny coming from someone at Microsoft, but I always say, forget about the technology for a minute and focus on the indicators that you need to move. And then figure out what technologies can support the movement of those indicators. So don't start with the product. Don't start with the technology. Start with the indicators, then figure out what supports the movement of those, because then you're going to realize the quickest time to value.
That's great. And to that point, Jim, can they start small? Can they start in one specific area, or how do they get started on their plan?
Not only can you start small, you should start small. So look at the thing that is going to bring the most time to value. Maybe it's a change in your admissions process, or maybe it's around student success and persistence. And then look at all the places that you're touching a student around those processes. And then where can you make the quickest change that brings the most value? So you should start small. And part of that accidental architecture, no one thinks you're going to take all of those pieces out and change them at once. It's all about prioritization. And by the way, technology is important, but change management and governance just as important. So when we consult, when we bring those processes to you, it's not just about the technology. It's about, how do we make this successful? How do you deploy it? Where should you start? Where are you going to bring the most value? And our partners are fantastic at that as well.
Great. I have a question for you now, Dustin. What do you say to universities and institutions who are dealing with shrinking budgets and overworked staff, but still have a need to use data intelligently?
One of the really interesting things I think about the Microsoft Unified Platform is that it's a very deeply integrated and unified system, and built on top of fully managed services and technologies, which means that the universities that I'm working with that are building these intelligent applications and building these predictive analytic solutions are able to start at a scale that makes sense for them, right? And so none of the universities that I'm working with are deploying these massive solutions, right? everybody's kind of starting small. Everybody's starting with really succinct proofs of concept in order to prove that value. And I think one of the really valuable things of working in a cloud ecosystem like the Microsoft Unified Platform is that these universities can start at a scale that makes sense for them. And then once their solution grows, and once their need grows and the data grows, and then we kind of talked about all of that, Jim and I, then the solution can scale to the level that makes sense for them. Now, with these being fully managed technologies, that means that these university staff are not having to maintain servers and make sure that the networks are all set up correctly, and that Microsoft does all of that for our universities. We keep all of that running. We keep everything headed in the right direction so that the universities, institutions, and their staff can do what they should be doing and be focused on their job, whether that's student success, whether it's retention, whether it's admissions, whether it's engagement, or whatever that might look like.
Thank you so much, Dustin and Jim. I think that's a wrap.
Absolutely, my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Suzanne. It's been a pleasure.